Hi, I'm Altree, Piemme, Director of Outreach here at San Jose Rep, and I'm here with Seer, who is directing our current production of Sonia here at the Rep. So welcome, Rick. Glad to have a chance to talk to you a little bit about the show
and
how it's going. And I know we're in previews now, so that's very exciting. But I guess the first thing that I wanted to ask you is what it was about this show that really speaks to you as an artist, as a director, that really moved you in your vision of putting this on our stage.
You know, Rick Lombardo, the artistic director, talks about telling stories and how important it is to tell stories and to find new ones. And for me, this is a new story. I had not heard this story before. I knew about the Cuban Missile Crisis, as a teenager, and getting under my desk and being afraid of the A-bomb and all that sort of thing. And I knew only really that Castro was bad and that communism was bad and that was just off our shores. But I didn't know much about the story, about how the revolution happened, much less how Cuban immigrants came to this country. So this was a new story to me entirely, especially the idea of the Pedro Pan operation that brought Cuban children to this country to escape the revolution, escape communist rule. And that I found fascinating. I did a bit of reading about it when we first started looking at the play. And it was very much like what was happening in Europe during the Second World War. It was very much what was happening in communist countries around the world rather. And that was fascinating to me, and I got very involved very quickly in the play.
Mm-hmm. So there is a lot that's about Cuba and Cuban immigration and that piece of history, and that all really takes place in the second act, though, right? So in the first act, we're really learning a bit about a more contemporary family, actually in 2001, right? Just after what this whole country went through with September 11th, and they're really impacted by that. So do you want to talk a little bit about that aspect of what we'll be seeing in the show?
You know what's interesting about it is that Rick, I know, hesitated a little bit about this play because it was written right after 9/11, and what, in part, the first act is a response to and reaction to what happened at 9/11, and happened to most of us. Unfortunately, we're still involved in a couple of wars around the world, and the fallout from 9/11 and our sense of insecurity, our sense of not being sure of our surroundings, our nervousness. I don't know about you, but I still am a little nervous flying and that sort of thing. All of that is still quite topical, and the play works, I think, extremely well that way. First act takes place in Minneapolis, and we're dealing with a woman who is, for lack of a better way to describe it, on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And this is impacting her family. They're all very concerned about her. And this is, she says, is a reaction to 9/11 and to the fact that she's feeling insecure in her world here. I think we can all relate to that. But what we don't know is a kind of mystery. What we don't know is something in her background was triggered by the 9/11 event, and it has made her extremely reactive to the same nervous feelings that all of us were feeling. And so the first act is a kind of setup for the mystery that is explained in the second act.
Mm-hmm. So kind of what you're talking about a lot are really the historical touchstones that are there in the play, right? So, we're looking at where we are in history in 2001, right after September 11th. We're looking at things that are happening in Afghanistan and the wars there, and then we go back and we look at what was happening in Cuba during and immediately following the revolution. So that's really a historical context, right? Because would you say that the play is about that, or what would you say the play is really about for you?
What's fascinating is all that history to me, and that's what it really grabbed me initially, and I think it will be for audiences as well. The power of the play, however, is all in family, and is what most of us would recognize as that interfamily relationship and the struggles that this family in particular is having with one another in reaction to a world that is changing, that is more dangerous, that is less easily understood. But nevertheless, I think the universality of that family experience and a family trying to relate to one another, try to understand the difference in generations and understanding their need to step up and ask for forgiveness of each other. is really what the core of the play is about. The happy thing about it for me is that they go on quite a journey, and quite a dramatic journey through the course of the play, but there's a kind of resolution at the end of this play that is quite uplifting and hopeful, and I think that's what good theater is all about.